Welcome to Collegial Conversations with Diana Clark, the professional webinar series that offers clinical and personal perspectives on issues that are common, but often not talked about. Here is today's Collegial Conversation.
Hi, and welcome to a Collegial Conversation. I am Diana Clark, and today's guest is Mickie Brown. She is the clinical manager for education, mindfulness, and patient well-being at the Manhattan Clinical Center at Mount Sinai Selikoff Centers for Occupational Health, a World Trade Center Health Program Clinical Center of Excellence. In addition to that, she's worked with 9/11 workers. She's been a board-certified holistic nurse, certified mind-body medicine teacher, and studied mindfulness under one of the best teachers out there, Jon Kabat-Zinn. So, welcome today. I have a bunch of questions, Mickie, so I hope you're ready for me. I'll try and do them slow.
Bring them on. You're curious.
I am very
things about mindfulness, Diana. I appreciate that.
awesome. So let's just start. What is the difference between mindfulness and meditation? Because people talk about them synonymously, and I think they're different. Tell me about that.
So they're similar, but not really. So the meditation is the part, I always explain it this way. There's formal meditation, there's informal meditation. The formal meditation is when you have people sitting, breathing, they're either doing a body scan, awareness of breath, they're focusing their mind. And you begin to realize, oh, my mind goes all over the place. Oh my God, I can't keep it can't keep it in one place. And that's the formal meditation. But I always explain to people in their formal meditation, they will notice that their mind is really human. It wanders. Our mind does that. And your success is when you notice it wanders. And then you have a choice of bringing it back to where your point of focus is, which in the meditation may be on the breath, it may be on the body scan, it may be, there's so many different ways to meditate. That's the formal. The informal is your life. And so that's where mindfulness really kicks in, so that you can really be present for the moments in your life. Because research has shown that almost 50% of the time we are not. And so we're missing out on a lot. We time travel with our mind. And so our mind goes backwards, it goes forward, and it's rarely in the present moment. And so the benefit of that formal training is that it kind of brings some balance, some steadiness, some calmness to our mind so that we can be fully present wherever we are. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. So I see meditation has the potential for structure. Mindfulness has a way of being.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. All right.
So, learner.
I want to tease out, let's talk about meditation. You talked about body scan, breathing. There's a million ways to meditate. For somebody with a busy mind, do you advocate getting some auditory help for initially while they're learning? Are there tools that we can learn while we're just getting to the point where we can do that on our own?
Yes. That's the good news for today, because 10 years ago, there were not the number of apps that there are today. Today, there are so many apps available. Some of them are really, in my mind, more, I don't want to use the word credible because they're all credible, but they're more based in real mindfulness theory and concepts, whereas others are a little bit muddled. And so there, like I said, there's many different apps. I have ones that I recommend to my students. But yes, definitely. I just finished a MBSR, the session 1 course, and one of the participants.
What is that? What do those initials stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, the apps, and we'll finish that question. And then yes. So MBSR is Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction. And it's a course that was created by Jon Kabat-Zinn all the way back in the 70s. And he, being a researcher, you know who Jon Kabat-Zinn is, obviously. Yes. And Jon began the research in mindfulness through this 8-week course. It's an 8-week 2.5 hours per week with a silent day of silence after class 6, 5 to 7 hours. And so it's a commitment. And so I had session 1 today for the Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction course. And somebody said at the end, are you going to give us a guided meditation or do we have to do it on our own? And I, with great fear in her eyes, I said, no, they're all guided because that's the way we begin.
Our brains don't automatically know how to meditate, does it?
No, it's not.
Our brains automatically know how to wander and how to worry.
Yes. We're so good at that, aren't we?
Deliciously good at worry. Yes. Yeah. So why is that? Why are our brains so well worried?
So this goes back to, first of all, the negative, well, the neuropsychologist Rick Hansen coined a phrase. It's the negative sticks like Velcro.
I know. I use his.
The positive slips away like Teflon. Gone. And so that really supports worrying because we're thinking about all the things that could go wrong. And the reason for that, Diana, is because when we evolved as a species, we had to be aware of our surroundings because we were very territorial. And if there was a stranger that came into your territory, you had to think about, is this a marauder or is this a friendly person? Who is it? And so you had to remember all of those potential threats. And so today, neuroscience tells us we still have that propensity to think about what could go wrong. Anticipatory stress, thinking, oh my God, am I going to get through this? Am I going to get through this? And it creates a lot of suffering for us. And so when we begin to notice that, we can do a little bit of self-talk. We can let it go, that anticipatory thinking. Oh my God, how am I ever going to get through today? I booked so many things. What was I thinking? And you can just very gently say to yourself, you get through it every time.
Every day.
Yeah. Let it go.
Yeah. You use the word suffering. What is the difference between struggling and suffering?
Well, certainly struggle would be a form of a suffering. And struggling is really pushing against, resisting what is happening. And there's attitudinal foundations of mindfulness. One of them is acceptance. There's non-judgment, there's beginner's mind, there's acceptance. That's a big one because we typically look at moments, why is this happening? Or why is this person this way? I wish my spouse wouldn't do that. Or I wish my child were different. Whatever it might be that we're struggling against, it's really a lack of acceptance and it's resistance. And so we spend a lot of energy resisting, and that's
holding back oceans, right?
Yes.
My first lesson in this was way back before I ever even toyed with the idea of mindfulness and meditation. And it was The Road Less Traveled. Do you remember that book?
Yes.
Well, you open it up and the first line is life is difficult, but life gets less difficult when we accept it.
Yes. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
The power of acceptance, the power of letting go and letting be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's profound.
It is profound. So what happens in our brains when we do actually engage in a meditative practice on a regular basis? What is science telling us that happens?
So we're less stressed. We have a greater capacity to focus. We're actually less self-referential because we're like a child. The baby comes into the world and grows and it's me. Yes. And so we're operating from a part of our brain, research tells us, that's called the default mode network. And the default mode network is a very kind of, it's where we are when we're ruminating, when we're thinking about, the world from the lens of me. And there's another network called the task positive network. When we meditate, we have a greater capacity to be able to swing into that task positive network and focus on a task that we might really need to get done. We're not so self-referential. We're not so mind-wandering. We're actually better able to focus. And so that's a big one. We're more compassionate, not only to ourselves, but to others. And then as far as physically, we have a greater capacity to work with our pain rather than resist it. So there's a lessened feeling of pain, but nothing changes physiologically. There's less inflammation in our body.
Really?
And yes.
Physiologically, we are less inflammation if we have a meditative practice. Is that the reduction of cortisol?
Yes. So if you think about our nervous system, there's the sympathetic, the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. And so the rest and digest is where we heal. The fight or flight is where we have that increase in energy, but it can also be very draining if we're in it chronically, right? And we're producing cortisol and the stress hormones all the time. And so there's more inflammation. And so there's more cardiac disease, there's more rheumatism, there's more autoimmune diseases. And so when we have that capacity and learn these practices to flip the switch into the parasympathetic nervous system, it just makes sense that all of those conditions are going to be alleviated.
So can I ask you
reduced?
Yes. Can I ask you a question? What does your daily meditation look like, or what is your practice of mindfulness?
Right. So I practice in the morning now. I used to practice at night. I'm a night person, typically. I'm becoming more of a morning person as I age. But I used to practice at night because I had a very demanding administrative position when I was working full time. And when I would come home at the end of the day, it was typically after dinner, or I'd pop something into my mouth and then I'd start my bedtime routine. And so my mind would be very, very busy. And so I would start maybe with a walking meditation. And that's a type of meditation that we can do. And then I would transition into a sitting meditation. And so I would meditate for about 20 minutes. Then I would get into my bed. And then I would go to sleep. That was when I was relaxed. So,
so what is a walking meditation?
So the walking meditation itself is another form of meditation. There's so many different ways. We all think of meditation as the classic person sitting on the cushion with their legs crossed, right? Right. And so there's so many different ways that we can meditate. First of all, we can assume whatever posture and we can walk, we can lay down, but to meditate is to fall awake. I always remind my students, falling awake. Meaning,
explain that, stretch that out. Yes.
We're attentive. We're not, we want to have the energy, the curiosity to be attentive, but we also want to have that kind of calm that brings us to, a different state of mind. So it's a balance between those two. And so posture, of course, can support that balance. Yeah. So I always say to people, I sit like this. I don't sit back in my chair.
I don't either.
Yeah. I sit
occasionally I do this, but I am upright.
Yeah. And so the posture supports that. And so you talked about walking, we were talking about walking meditation. So the classic walking meditation is when you simply bring awareness to the function of walking. So when you think about it, when I instruct people, I will say, put your weight on your left foot. Now your right foot lifts, it shifts, and it lands. And then we shift the weight to our right foot. The left foot lifts, shifts, and lands. So we kind of slow down that walking process. And I always say to people, only use the length of a yoga mat, imaginary yoga mat. I used to always say, real estate in New York City is expensive, so we don't need a lot of space.
Right.
The length of a yoga mat. And then we stop at the end. We gather our thoughts because usually our mind has gone off someplace. And then we begin lift, shift, land. So it's a different way of bringing awareness to something that we all do routinely, very automatic pilot. So that in itself can be a meditation. But again, where that translates into real life is if you live in a city, you're constantly walking. And so we can bring our awareness into our whole body, all the way down to our feet, to feel movement. And when we bring our awareness into our body, we're more balanced. We're not all up here where we typically spend our time. We're more balanced, we're more grounded.
Do you think as we have become less grounded in farming and agriculture and things like that, do you think we've gotten more neck up in that way, more worry than in the couple generations ago? We may have been more active and more present in our bodies.
I would probably, I haven't thought about that, but that's a really good point, Diana, in that when we were farmers, when we were workers, we were really using our body in a different way. When we're more intellectually employed, oftentimes we're not even aware of our body. There's James Joyce, the Irish author, has a character that he calls Mr. Duffy. And he says Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body.
I love that. I'm going to steal that. Yes, because I do. I live very neck up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would agree that just being outdoors in nature, we're, in these cubicles and these offices so often without any windows oftentimes. And so I think that contributes to our imbalance that is so prevalent today.
I do too. And the screens. How do we stay present? We're cooking or doing anything. And if we're staring at a screen, we're not present with our meal. We're not present with our cooking. We're not present with anything. The distraction level must be increasing every decade.
I agree. And that's why I think it's so important to take a break from, I work with doctors that are in very stressful positions. And I say, put your phone into your pocket when you're walking to the elevator. When you get on the elevator, take a look around at the people that are surrounding you. And that in itself it's a small moment. Many times, be conscious of your breathing, just like I see you breathing now. Be conscious of your breathing. Ask yourself, observe yourself. There's a stop practice. S is simply to stop. T is take a couple of conscious breaths, following the breath. And then O is observe. What do I need right now? What's happening with me? What's my body telling me? And it could be, it's like this.
Right.
Often we walk around like this all day. And then at night we wonder, oh my God, my neck is just killing me. My shoulders are so sore.
I'm not angry.
No. So it's those small moments many times that really make the difference. So that stop practice, 2 feet, 1 breath, bringing awareness all the way down to your feet, taking a conscious breath. The people that are seeing clients, seeing patients all the time, before the next one comes in, just stop.
Just stop.
Yeah.
One of the meditations I use is I imagine leaves on a stream. I live on water, so there is always a backdrop on a stream. So there's always a backdrop of rushing water if I have my windows open. So I have just decided my thoughts are just the leaves, just floating down the river.
That's a beautiful image. Beautiful.
Another one.
Pardon me?
Here comes another leaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it go. And, there's another image of clouds in the sky just floating by, letting them go.
I like it.
Birds. I often say to people, we don't reach up and grab the bird like we do our thoughts. We let the bird fly by. So let the bird carry the ball. Let him go.
Lovely. That is lovely. So, if you were to think of an animal, I'm going to ask you a bizarre question. What animal emulates sort of mindfulness? When you think about animals, is there a pet that you think, okay, I'm trying to have this down?
I think what came to my mind very quickly was a deer.
Yeah.
And a deer is, just very aware of their surroundings. And when there's danger, they are like that. And then they run, and then they start chowing again.
Then they
on your flowers. Yeah,
on your apple tree, right?
right.
And they're enjoying that apple. They're not
Absolutely.
worrying about the danger. That was 5 minutes ago.
Exactly. Yes. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had that capacity? Just let go. Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy the apple.
Yes. Yes. But we're human.
We're human. I know. I know. And I'm going to ask you another question. As I have increased in decades, I have noticed that thoughts become less and less consequential. Meditation is maybe not as structured a practice for me, but the whole notion of what's important is crystallizing as I age. Is that a common experience?
That is called wisdom.
Not just age, huh?
No, many elderly people. I organize a group that is composed primarily of elderly people, and many of them are tortured by their thoughts. And so, which is so unfortunate at that stage in their life. And so that wisdom is really accrued through practice.
Well, that's nice to know.
Yes. We begin to notice our thinking and to notice what are the thoughts that are constantly coming up. And then, when you think about a thought, it's like a drop of sand in the desert or a drop of water in the ocean. And our practice is what allows us to put it into perspective. And that's where the wisdom comes in. We can notice the thinking and say, let it go.
Let it go.
Not going there, not getting on that thought train.
Because what I have observed is I have over many, many times invested multiple hours of neural activity worrying about something that never happened.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I have done the same. But yeah, I used to do it all the time, anticipatory stress. And now I let it go. I spend so little time in that way.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful feeling. And this is one of the real huge benefits of mindfulness and getting to know yourself and, appreciating who you are. And yet, I don't think we talked about the first and second arrow, right?
Yeah, I know.
So the first arrow is what the incident might be, or it could be, if it's pain, it could be physical pain, it could be the actual pain. The second arrow is the thoughts around that pain. Oh my God, I can't stand this. I may never be able to walk again. I'm going to lose my job. Oh my God, I'm going to be homeless. Those are all second arrow. It all began with one thing, a physical pain.
One stimulus.
Yeah. One stimulus, exactly. And so it's always important to be able to separate what's the first arrow? What's the real deal here? And then what is all of the secondary suffering that I'm inflicting upon myself through that second arrow?
And we do that in relationships constantly, collecting grudges and resentments. I feel like we're all Rain Man. We just don't write down our little resentments. We just have them in our brain.
We keep them there so we can really fuel them.
There so we can take them out and visit with them a while and make them grow a little bit more. Yes.
And then the other thing that we're so good at is thinking that we know what everybody's thinking.
Yeah, right? It's great. That one is great. No, I actually wasn't even thinking about you.
Right. I was thinking about me.
Right. There's an expression in the recovery community, the substance use recovery community, which is, I may not be much, but I'm all I think about. And I love that because it is so human.
I love that.
I think we're not much, but we're always focused on ourselves.
Yeah.
I love
Self-referential thinking. I love it too. I have to remember that. I think I'm not much, but I am all I think about.
I may not be much, but I'm
I made
all
up.
I think about. You got it. Well, we have spent half an hour being curious about mindfulness and meditation. I appreciate you talking with us today, Mickie, and
My pleasure.
look forward to seeing this. And your voice in and of itself is an agent of calm. So thank you.
Thank you, Diana. This has been a pleasure. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you for joining this webinar. Tune in to more webinars and sign up for our newsletter at o'connorpg.com.